Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. In this week's episode, well, we've got tons of stuff to talk about, pretty much with Disney Plus getting some major overhauls, especially in the United States, because it's finally been kind of confirmed we're getting the mature content, we're getting some new parental controls, we're getting the Netflix series. We're also going to be talking about basically what's going on with the new ad tiers that's going to be introduced onto Disney Plus. Plus, also like what's going on with Hulu and the a possible merger. Plus, we're also going to be sharing our thoughts on West Side Stories. It's a very different episode, I think, in terms of all the stuff we've been talking about for years. It feels like this week's stuff has really started to rev up. The talk that we've had over the years of mature content coming in the US, it's finally happening. We've had it here in the UK for a good year, but now it's starting to creep in on the US. But I think the ad tier and the implications that that's going to have on not just Disney Plus but on Hulu as well. I think it's kind of a strange week because I thought none of this was going to get announced this week. I thought it was going to be next Wednesday when we had the annual shareholders. We might have got some more stuff, so I'm expecting some more businessy news to be coming at some point later on. But yeah, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, so let's start off with kind of the big one, really, the ad tiers. Let's start off with that one. So this has been confirmed. This was it kind of was brewing during the week. There was a little bit of a story earlier in the week, and it's kind of funny because I was looking at the official press side of Disney Plus, and they were putting up loads of articles about all this new technology that they were implementing, all this new stuff that they were going on for. And it was like, well, they're spending a lot of money on technology and databases and programming because they've got these upfronts coming up where they try and get all their advertisers in place. And it was like, there's a lot of stuff here. And if Hulu's kind of flittering off, they wouldn't be spending all this money on new ad technology. If the linear networks are kind of getting, close, internationally they've closed most of them down. You're going to go, well, they're not spending all this money for nothing. And then the news started coming out about an ad tier. I mean, we've mentioned it before, but then it was officially confirmed. It's going to be coming in late 2020 to the US with plans to expand internationally in 2023. So this is going to be a new tier that's cheaper than what we're paying right now for Disney Plus. And you can still be able to subscribe to Disney Plus without adverts. Though my pure guess here is that when they do this announcement, we're going to have a price rise for Disney Plus, and then there'll be the ad version will be a little bit cheaper. But I also suspect this will line in with the idea of a lot more content arriving onto Disney, because this is what they did when they added Star last year for us. They, when they did drop Star, they put it up double the amount that we were expecting. It was like £2 or something a month, but it was enough to kind of go, look, we're giving you twice as much stuff. And I feel like we're going to get that over the summer. We're just going to see more stuff dripping onto Disney Plus, so they can essentially go, look, you're going to get a lot more, and then you're going to get this ad version. But what did you think of this ad news?
Yeah, I mean, my initial reaction with these ad tiers is always going to be the same, which is I don't want ads in these things at all. And so looking at it purely from a selfish perspective, which isn't always the best perspective in things like this, because since it is going to be cheaper than the regular version, rather than a bump up in price combined with this becoming the price on the ad version, at least at launch. But as you said, I agree, we're probably looking at a price increase in the near future. Making it more accessible to people is always going to be a good thing. The big thing with streaming is that it's not ads. I mean, this is why I don't go back to
that's the old days. That's the old days of when Netflix was that's just like, well, I remember when I used to have one Netflix and that was all I needed.
I mean, yeah, pretty much, except without the sarcasm. But yeah, no, this is the new system. Most of the competitors have ad versions. Hulu has an ad version. Netflix has been putting trailers, if not exactly ads, but trailers in front of theirs. I mean, technically a trailer is an ad, but it feels different because you're seeing content rather than, I don't know, a serial or something like that. But if it makes it more accessible, and as long as the ad free or the top tier one is truly ad free, that's fine. But we've also seen some of these other ones where you'll pay for like the top tier package and they're like, oh yeah, some content will still have ads. It's like, no, that's not cool.
I also wonder if they need to if they start doing live streams and stuff, they'll have ads baked into it, so therefore they've kind of got to get us signed in that way.
It depends on how if they do that. It would depend on how they do it. If they do it where I don't know, we'll say that the shareholder call, I don't know why they would do ads, but let's just use that as the example. And then he gets up on stage, he makes his announcements, and be like, and now here's 2 minutes of, from our sponsors. And then he comes back. That would be a little bit much. But if they do it like Premier League style, where there's just an ad up in the corner under the scoreboard, yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. It just feels like things are like changing in that way of doing it. I mean, like you say, there's generally been this theme of the traditional studios seem to have really embraced going into adverts. Peacock, Hulu, Paramount Plus, HBO Max are all doing these ad versions, whereas Netflix is the old school streamer, and they're like, no, we're not doing it. Amazon don't do it, but they do it on their IMDb. Apple TV have even started doing little bits and stuff on there. But there's been a lot more like kind of flack coming on Netflix for their price rises of people going, well, this stuff's really starting to kick up a bit. But for me as well, the idea of having these ad tiers is you might, if you've only got so much money a month to spend on content. Well, if you got the cheaper versions of all of the ones that have got ads, you'll be able to get all of them rather than maybe 2 of them without ads. And I think that's where, it's great, if you can afford not to have the adverts, great. I mean, that's what, we'll be doing for Disney Plus. But I'll be honest, I mean, if I got like Paramount Plus, I'm not going to watch it a huge amount. But if it's got ads, it's not such a big deal. But because I don't want, whereas there's Disney Plus, I'm watching it all the time. And I think there's that kind of thing of, this is going to hit a whole other market which weren't maybe going to get onto Disney Plus in the first place. And I mean, I've seen some stats recently. This market can be 20 to 30% of streaming, and I think a lot of people maybe, if you're a hardcore fan, you're like, I don't want it. But this is not about the hardcore fan. This is about just your casual.
Right. Options are always going to be a good thing, especially since they're still competing with linear television, which you get what you get with linear, right? That's the big thing, is you get a lot of content, but you get it at their pace. Whereas streaming, once it's on, you can watch it anytime. But like I said, as long as there is the option for an ad-free version, I'm okay with this. Let them have the option so that more people can get access to it. Or like you're talking about, I'm only going to subscribe because I want to watch The Mandalorian and Boba Fett, and I don't care about anything else. So that's 20-something episodes that I can deal with that. Right. Yeah. But if I'm going to be sitting there and watching it over and over and over again, let me not deal with the ads. Like Paramount Plus, like if I ever... I'll say when. I will eventually subscribe to it again for like a month or two and check out the newest season of Picard that's airing right now, and the Halo season when that comes out. I don't see myself watching anything other than those. Yeah, I'll go with the ad version. I don't care.
Yeah, and I think as well is there's the only issue. I think they might have to be a bit careful with their adverts. I know, like here in the UK, because we've got really quite strict laws about adverts for kids programming. So there's going to be little international things that they have to be aware of. So it's not just be one ad, but it's definitely going to be an interesting thing. Definitely the feedback, the majority of people are against it. And I feel like, but it's like the ones that are online that are following this are probably not the audience that are going to get this. If it's 10, 20% of the market, it's going to continue to add it. There's been some speculation and stuff going, they're a bit soft on the numbers. They want to hit like sort of this next level. And it's like, well, I can see what you're saying, but they can reach another audience. But there's also, every time they do a quarterly results, we see how much money Disney make off of Hulu, off of subscribers which are on the ad version rather than the commercial free version. They actually make more on the person that's got the $5 or the $6.99 package than they do on the full package because of the advertising. So they actually make more money. It's another revenue stream. That's more money to go into more content. It just becomes a more viable business in some ways by having all of these different options and stuff. And yeah, I can kind of look at it and go, there's so many good reasons for it, and and it's good for some people. It's not good for others. But ultimately, it's not like I would be completely against it if they're like, oh, all tiers are going to have ads. I'd be very much against it. I would be like, no, that's not good. But you have the choice. It's your choice. It's your money of what you want to spend your time on. You know, I watch YouTube all the time, but I haven't got YouTube Red. I mean, I should do, but I don't. You know, and it's like, it's my choice of. I mean, I probably watch a few hours of YouTube a day, but I've never even considered the idea of paying for it.
No, I had a YouTube Red subscription very briefly when it was tied into Google Music. So I actually had a Google Play Music subscription because but then they merged that into YouTube Music, and the new interface is horrendous. So I dropped that, which meant I lost YouTube Red at the same time, and I don't feel like I lost anything at all with that. But yeah, just to reiterate, I said it, you said it. As long as there is an ad-free version that is not pricing people out too outrageously, like if it's $4 for lots of ads, $7 for the occasional ad, or like one ad at the beginning of the show, and then it's $20 for the ad-free version, be like, no, that's not cool. But if the pricing stays reasonable for the ad-free version, it's like, okay, yeah, options are good. Just make sure I have a reasonable option for no ads, because frankly, I have not watched anything that has ads in terms of like streaming and stuff, YouTube and Twitch and stuff accepted, in years at this point, like quite some time.
Well, I know when we weren't where we are now. We didn't have satellite television, and we were watching like Channel 4 on demand, and it would have ads. But what we were finding was that on the third ad break, it would keep crashing with our television every time. Every time we were watching something, on the third ad, it would crash. And it did get to the point of like we just stopped watching like Channel 4 stuff on demand, but it was because it's like the app couldn't handle it. So that's my only kind of, there's other versions and stuff that have it, but it's like, I mean, I have satellite television, so you fast forward it. But yeah, I mean, but I can see the advantage from a lot of different things. The fact that like Disney are putting this on the spin of like, it's going to have this low price point is good for consumers, advertisers, and the storytellers, so more people get to see it, which I completely understand. But I also feel like this is all part of that big step of, if they need to merge Disney Plus and Hulu, this is a major reason that makes this then doable, because you've then got comparable, because the minute with Hulu, they're making so much money on it with adverts. They need to do that with Disney Plus, and they can't merge it and lose all that money. There's no business is going to do that one, but this is just a massive step in that potential merger.
Yeah, that's ultimately what it comes down to. As you said, that was the lead into Star getting added into the UK and things of that nature. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, if I'm talking about the emotional reaction, I'm not happy with it. But you know what? Business is business, and need to not look at this from a selfish perspective. If people can get access to it now, when they couldn't get access to it before because it priced them out, good. That's
yeah. And I mean, there's going to be a whole lot of people that will, there's that kind of thing of pensioners, people on low incomes, also just in terms of there being so many streamers. And I do feel like the market is kind of leading the way of going, look, we know people are only going to have so many streaming services, and we want to have you to have access to them, rather than 20, if they follow the Netflix route of like $15-20 a month, you're only going to subscribe to so many. But if you can make them $5 to $6 each with ads, you might have 4. And I think this, and also I think this, the studios are looking at it going, well, we've been making money like this for decades, and you want us just to turn it off and be completely dependent on subs. It's not easy for any business to kind of go, yeah, all that revenue we make over here, we're just not going to do that anymore. We're not going to make any money from that. And Netflix is, just because Netflix has done it, doesn't necessarily mean that's the only way of doing it for the rest of existence. And I think we're really starting to see that the big studios are going, well, Netflix is doing it their way, and they might be this big revolutionary one, but they're, it's like, that's not going to, I don't know. And also, I got to think, if they've got ads on the entire Disney Plus around the world, that's really going to bring in some revenue.
It's also worth pointing out that, Netflix is only Netflix. That is their entire service. They don't offer anything else. There isn't a Netflix theme park. There isn't a Netflix store that you can go to and get, Squid Game merchandise or Queen's
I
Gambit
think they
merchandise.
do actually have a store, an
And they
online
might-
store, but
No,
that's yeah.
not an online store, an
Yeah.
actual physical store that you can go to. Although, granted, Disney doesn't really anymore either. But the point being, Netflix only has Netflix. All of these other studios, Disney included, have other avenues open to them. And while that would, on the surface, appear to be like, oh, well, you've got all these other revenue sources, so you can use Disney Plus as a loss leader and just eat the loss because you make it up everywhere else. It's like, no, actually, the opposite is true. You need to keep all the advertisers happy because they're the people who get everything else running. So it's kind of tossing a bone to them in that sense.
Yeah, it's going to be a big impact. We don't know yet when the prices are going to be announced. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I expected this news to be announced maybe next Wednesday for the annual shareholders. They jumped a little bit early, maybe because the news got out and they didn't want it getting lost in it. But that was a big news. We also had confirmation that all of the Marvel Netflix originals are now heading to Disney Plus in the UK, Australia, Canada, Ireland, New Zealand, and Canada and America on the 16th of March. So that's including Daredevil, Luke Cage, Iron Fist. You're also getting Jessica Jones, The Punisher, and The Defenders, along with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. dropping in the US as well. It's all going to be going into the Marvel section of Disney Plus. Other areas will be getting it at another date. I know there's a few people that have been upset that their countries aren't getting it. That could be down to subtitles, all kinds of like legal issues that they've got to deal with. But big move. I think this really shocked a lot of people in the US. I mean, the response to this was insane when this came in on Wednesday, and it did exactly what I said they were going to do. Was let's use Marvel as the gateway into adult content. Use it as they're going to update the parental controls on the Wednesday that it drops. So if you log in the US, you will be presented with a screen saying, probably put your password in. Do you want to have access to 16 and 18 content? And you will accept it or deny it. If you deny it, you just get put onto the 14 certificate. You can still go in and change it afterwards if you want to. This is how it worked with Disney Plus when Star launched last year for us, but it'll probably just be slightly tweaked on it of how it works in terms of the general entertainment side of things. But this was exactly what I said. They're using Marvel as a way of bringing this content in through the back door to see to have the negative reaction to this really didn't kind of kick in too much. There was a little bit like, obviously, like you say, like the Punisher coming to Disney Plus, people, but generally, a lot of people were worried about it being edited, and then there's and it's thrown everything out. It's like I said, it threw the rule book for Disney Plus out the window. When I say like it's coming to Star and Hulu, well, at the minute I'm still kind of going with that territory because they've got to prove me wrong. But the rules are changing, and this is again another step forward in that kind of move. I feel for Disney Plus and Hulu to end up merging in the US is two of the big things that they needed to do. They've announced this week for Disney Plus. This is much closer than it was 3 months ago.
Yeah, and while we won't talk about it too much, also they had the news that a lot of NBC content would be pulling off of Hulu too.
Oh yeah, that's the next topic.
Yeah, well, I can't talk about that one too much, but
no,
that one's worth mentioning. But yeah, up until they announced it, like I really was not sure what direction they were going to go. We talked about it last week. I think we talked about it the last 2 weeks actually, and I knew this was the move that would be the smartest one for the reasons you talked about. But I honestly was like, this is 50-50. It's either going to Hulu or it's going to Disney Plus. And if you had to make me place a bet, I'd be like, let me flip a coin. That'll be more accurate than anything I could say. Yeah. So
I was definitely in that 50. I knew, like, for me here in the UK, I'm like, well, I'm getting it. There's no reason why I wouldn't. But it was like in America going, like, and I'm there going, and I've been saying it. This feels like the way of, and it worked. It worked perfectly how this went down during the week. This announcement came in, and the gut reaction was from you went down through the list of stuff, and it was 9 out of 10 were 4. This is great. This is great. This is great. The odd person, because it was under the Marvel banner, it wasn't catching people's attention. The same thing. People know what it is because it's the Marvel shows, and it's like it didn't get that. They didn't have. I would say this was a completely positive thing. We're talking probably. I would say 99% of the people were happy about this, and a lot of people were just like, maybe, like I said, we could see the things were moving, with the announcements and what they were doing, but not everyone, like you say, follows it the same way. And you could see the steps happening, and it's like this really threw a lot of people, because people go, no, it's going to Hulu. It's like, no, this is the press release. It's the status. You go, no, it'll become Hulu. It's too mature. It's like, no, that's gone. It's gone completely. It was just like, no. And they're like, really? It's like, really? I was like, I had somebody, you lied to me. Why would I lie?
Why? I mean, well, on the internet these days, there's a lot of reasons to lie, but yeah, no, it's like, this is a press release. It is from Disney. It is being reported on every site. It is being reported on the major sites that normally don't cover too much Disney news. It's like, is everybody lying? It's like, I don't know, whatever. But yes, it's coming to Disney Plus. Now, the other thing, and I think what helped soften the blow for like the we don't want mature audience, was those parental controls.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I read it back on like Wednesday and I haven't looked at it since. If you do choose to have it restricted, so 14 and under, there are still versions of these shows that are that can be watched. Because it made it sound like they might have tastefully edited.
Yeah, no, I didn't read that at all on that one.
Okay, so that one might be a lie right there. Let me double check that.
It was definitely along the lines of, you just won't have. I don't think they're doing an edited version and an unedited one. I don't think it would work on them.
Okay,
and also it's just a lot of effort. It's literally on the lines of, if you don't want it, you don't see it. But for me, I feel like this also opens up opportunities now for Logan, Deadpool. You're going to get like maybe New Mutants. You might get Hellstrom, MODOK, Hitmonkey. All of those shows now off, and Cloak and Dagger, all fully game now to be shifted over the summer to fill in the gap, because it'll all fit within that Marvel brand.
Right. Yeah. That was the main thing. Is like, okay, we've already got Runaways over here because they moved that over a long time ago. But then you've got Cloak and Dagger is frankly the only one that I actually care about on the list of things that are not moving over. And like, bring that one over, and bring over Hellstrom. I don't, whatever. No one.
I only got about halfway through Hellstrom. I'll be honest. I think Logan and Deadpool are the two ones that will really kind of pull in some audience and stuff. But it's, for me, I feel like they can use the Marvel brand to really fill out this content. Or I also feel like they could use this with Nat Geo and start using National Geographic to start filling in the back, basically become the full version of Disney Plus. Because, for example, like here with my National Geographic, we've got a lot of stuff in here that you guys in the US don't have, because of these. And a lot of them are actually only 14, TV 14, but because they are a mature topic, they get left off. Things like First Wave. You've also got like Narco Wars. We've got all kinds of things in here that you just don't have in the US, and some big drama series as well. Things like just think Hot Zone, Anthrax. You've got Valley of the Boom. You've got Barkskins. You got Genius. Mars. All these shows could be brought into Disney Plus over this next couple of months to really kind of start filling out the sections without doing the whole thing with Star, because that's a whole other topic I want to get in on. But yeah, I definitely feel like National Geographic is a way of, they can do the same thing that they've done with Marvel.
I mean, the National Geographic brand already has some slightly mature content on it to begin with. The Right Stuff being the one that springs to mind. It had some expressive language in it that some people were not particularly happy with. And then, of course, National Geographic's documentaries, in general, when the content requires it, don't hold back. They will show you what they need to show you to get their point across. Normally, that means like animals attacking other animals, but occasionally, it can involve humans too. And so National Geographic is kind of the obvious way to continue adding in this content and get people used to the idea. I would also be surprised if they went the same way they did with Star, where they just drop everything and all of a sudden Alien and Predator and Die Hard are on there. I think those
Yeah.
might get kind of trickled in over time, going from slightly more violent all the way up to the
Well,
full on.
the way that because a lot of people have asked about like, well, why aren't they doing like the star drop and like dropping everything? It's like because the star drop actually did have some major problems internationally when they released it. First off, it had to have its own marketing campaign. It was all about trying to get off the idea that Disney Plus is kind of for other people. And it dropped a lot of stuff. There was also a price rise at the same time when it all dropped in, and they kind of had to get everything lined up. So I just feel like, if they do this with the Marvel shows and they do it with National Geographic and maybe throw a few 20th century movies and some ABC shows in on this, each month. I mean, I'm hoping on this coming week we get a bit of a better idea of what's happening with this general entertainment rollout, because it's very thin at the minute and we don't really know how it's going to work. But I would not be at all surprised if the major expansion comes in when they add tier version, if it all gets tiled in together and they just slowly over the summer just drop stuff in just to kind of start getting people. And I've been saying the drip effect of, rather than going all in and, you can start adding things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the series, and, Malcolm in the Middle and Family, was it Modern Family, and start kind of filling in that way, maybe Futurama. It depends what they're going to do with Hulu. I mean, if they announce that, they've brought Hulu, that's one thing, but it generally feels like if they can get Hulu, they're going to bring Disney Plus up to where Hulu is to make it much more easier to kind of merge the two, or kind of you have Hulu Live and Disney Plus will be the kind of the two ways I think is eventually going to end up going. But yeah, I that's my gut reaction.
Yeah, and also by moving them over slowly, potentially, they create a continual wave of news. This week Modern Family is coming over. That's a headline, and people will pick up on it. Next week we'll be adding in Futurama. That's a headline, and people will pick it up. And you can draw this out a lot longer. And it's not like it was over there where this content just was not available. Now, you can keep going. All right, this stuff's over on Hulu, and we're bringing it over piece at a time. But if the stuff that you want hasn't been brought over yet, well, here it is on Hulu. Check that out until we finish the move.
I mean, I think it would be cool, if they could do something maybe like with Love Victor, this summer, then that would be a good show to bring over. And just start easing people into, and I feel like that's my gut. I just don't know if they're going to go with the whole Star Drop. My other prediction as well is, and I hope this gets announced this coming week, because I just want to mention that it's an annual shareholders. It's not like a Disney Plus day or an investors day. It's just generally they tend to announce the business side of stuff a little bit more. If they announce an expansion of some hubs, we've been talking about that a lot right lately. This kind of feeds into the idea of, if they add a 20th century hub and an ABC hub, that's how they're going to get around this the way they're doing it. I actually don't think US is going to get a star. I think when it comes in, it will just be, but they might want to fill out the areas a little bit before. I know this week they announced the FX shows, like the American Horror Story and stuff are going to Hulu, and it's like that wasn't a surprise at all, because and like some people are going, well, why are they not putting that on Disney Plus? Like, no, that's a step that they're going with Daredevil and stuff first. They're putting American Horror Story onto Disney Plus in the US. They gotta go. It's a bit lighter step than that.
Yeah, no, people are willing to accept the Marvel shows because they're part of the MCU. They're familiar characters. They connect in or not. We're still kind of up in the air on that. I hope they are still considered part of it. And that's okay. Punisher's really, really violent, but Moon Knight's going to be really violent too, probably. So we kind of accept that. But yeah, Walking Dead, American Horror Story is like, there's nothing else like this on the platform. Where's this coming from? And that's what we're saying. They'll build up the steps, and eventually they'll be like, okay, here's American Horror Story. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense, because it fits in with all this other content that's been released.
We got that a lot with Pam and Tommy, where the people that were responding in like the UK bits and going, oh, why are they putting this in there? And people are going, like The Walking Dead's on there. We've had it for, and it was, and there was people jumping in, kind of going, you know, we've got like Alien and Die Hard. Why wouldn't they have this? And it was people kind of going, have you been into Disney Plus lately? It's just like, you know, you're seeing how this has evolved. And you know, like it's the steps that have been taken in the last like 3 months with Disney Plus have completely just thrown the rule book out the way. We are no longer looking at the same Disney Plus that it was back before Christmas.
No, not at all. And I'm glad to see the American version kind of getting into the same direction. I'm happy for this, and use those parental controls, guys. If you don't want your kids watching Punisher basically brutally murdering a bunch of people, there are parental controls that will stop it.
Yeah, and that's the key thing, you know, make a family account, you know, and also as well, you know, you might want you know, if you've got different kids of different ages, you want to set their content differently. You know, the 14-year-old might want to have different access to the 7-year-olds, you know, so you're going to give them a little bit of scope. One of the things that a lot of people have said was like the parents wanted to scroll through Disney Plus without seeing the mature stuff. So what I would say is, if that's you and you want like a family account, set up a family account. You can do that now. You don't have to wait till the day and do that instead. And maybe you just have a family account. Just if you have got a parental control one, put a password in. Make sure they don't know the PIN. Don't tell the kids the PIN. Definitely don't show them, but also change it randomly. Make sure it's not something simple, because I mean, I've said before, my friend's kid, when I go over there with the Xbox and I've got to set something up, I have to get the 8-year-old in to unlock the parental controls, because he's the only one that knows the PIN code. It's just like I go, this, and I'm like, I set this up for you guys, and now you forgot the number, but the kid's the only one that knows it. So this is a good system.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. I also just want to state as well, what I did like is in the official press release, it did state that we have experienced great success with the expanded content offering on Disney Plus across our global markets, and are excited to continue that here in the US, as well as offering consumers the best. There's very much along the line. I think they have found massive success with Star internationally, and the data is just backing them up now. I mean, it really has just kind of, they keep mentioning how good the you know, what it is that's come away from everywhere else.
Yeah, I'm imagining that they're mostly looking at the churn data, which is people dropping their subscription, you know, after 2 or 3 or 4 months. And once they added the Star content, I have to imagine the churn rate in Europe dropped significantly, which is what companies want. You want a low churn rate.
Yeah. And also just how many more people have signed up. But I've been hearing a lot of like Netflix subscribers starting questioning what they're watching, because I think a lot of people have kind of got like Netflix on default. And then they're thinking, well, I'm not in there very much. And like I've seen a lot of people commenting like along the lines of going, well, I know I use Disney Plus a lot now. You still got the odd person who goes, well, I only watch Star Wars on the kind. Yeah, but there's internationally, there is so much more available. But yeah, no, it's definitely just a really interesting week, like from the back end of Disney Plus, of what's going on. Of just like, wow, they were really starting to rev things up. It's like it's making it very difficult to predict.
It does. But I mean, even more than them saying it, you know, they'll call it out in shareholders, because that's shareholders want to hear that, yes, things are positive and people are subscribing and not unsubscribing. But more than anything, the simple fact that they're doing this with the Marvel shows on the American side is all I need to see as proof that the addition of Star worked in Europe and such, because Disney and most of these companies are very data driven. And if they were looking at the European data and going, you know what, people just aren't watching the Star content, they would not even bother trying over here. They would just like, nope, these are going straight over to Hulu. The experiment hasn't been going our way, so we'll just keep it the way it is, because this is what people want. But with the data that they have, they're going, no, people want this content, so let's start doing it this way over here as well.
And like I said, the big problem they had with the Star launch was it kind of gave off the impression that it was like an add-on or an additional fee or a different streaming service altogether. So I can see why Disney are kind of leaning in with the Marvel stuff and edging that in. And I think it definitely seems to have worked in terms of the backlash was not the same. It's just not how I literally was like, yeah, you guys, you did exactly what I thought you would do, and it's working because it's a different audience, and I think this has worked good. Want to bring up a quick thing, obviously on Hulu. It was announced this week and confirmed that Comcast is pulling its NBC Universal content from Hulu. It will mean from the fall, new episodes of next day shows like The Voice, etc., will not be available on Hulu the following day. They'll be on Peacock. We don't yet know what other content is going to be pulled, because there's going to be quite a lot of it pulled over the coming months ahead. This was part of their deal that they made back in 2019 when Disney brought Fox. A deal was made with Comcast where one of the conditions was that this could happen, and then in 2 years' time, either company can make the other one sell. Apparently, they're still in arbitration over trying to get the valuation to buy Hulu out. That's been the case, I think, for a while now, so it's anything new. But you're really starting to see this rev up of it. And Disney insiders have said that this will just free up some more money for Hulu to invest in more of its own original content rather than paying Comcast for these NBC Universal shows. But it's going to be another big drop of content leaving Hulu. But yeah, so this is just, again, all of this, all of the ad tiers, all of the parental controls, really starting to rev up. The combination between the two is going to get harder and harder to distinguish, but also much easier to blend when they're much closer together.
Yeah, I can't comment on this.
It's definitely, I feel definitely from the Hulu side, just in general, we are really going to see, again, we're going to see them merge. They are going to merge at some point, or Hulu might just be the live TV with Disney Plus built in and ESPN Plus built in. But we're definitely in the zone now of, I believe it's now a case of when rather than if Marvel, and also not when, Hulu and Disney Plus merge. It's definitely going to be happening at some point in the future. Right, moving on from there. Like I said, there was a lot of real heavy move stuff this week. But before we get into what we've been watching and stuff, just a quick bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already done so, make sure you check us out over as a YouTube channel member or a Patreon, where you can support us from as little as $2 a month. All helps towards paying the bills. A big hello and shout out to our gold, diamond, and platinum members, including Sarah. Thank you very much for your support. Plus Diona, Toki Guy, we've got Adam, Raphael, Jay Blue, Dana, Ricky, we've got Dave, Mamad, we've got Ben, My VCR Still Works, Bina, Joshua, Dawn, Martin, Jeremy. While over on the Patrons, we have got Daniel, Elliot, Aero, Kaled, Red Marsman, Cody, Jacob, Darren, The Juice, Sarah, and also Lauren and Andrew. Thank you so much for all of your support each and every month. And as per usual, you can take part in the live Q&A, which I think might be a little bit interesting this week for this one. A lot of people with a lot of questions about what's going on. But yeah, so it's in terms of new releases this week, the main big one was The Dropout, which was, we had 3 new episodes drop last week. Drop on Thursday. I did take my part on The Dropout last week, so we're not going to go too much into that one there. James hasn't got around to watching all those episodes yet, so we're going to leave that one just yet. Also, there was Fresh, which was a new movie that was released on Disney Plus internationally and on Hulu in the US, but unfortunately for us here in the UK, they pushed it back 2 weeks, so I haven't seen it. So we were like, well, it's not out for 2 more weeks, so we're not going to do that one. But the big one, really, West Side Story, dropped on Wednesday. Massive big movie. A movie I've been wanting to watch. I've never watched West Side Story, and I was very surprised at just how many of the songs I knew. It was like, I know, like, I probably knew 3/4 of the music, and it's like, it made it a lot more enjoyable, because then it wasn't, when you go watch a new musical, like, I don't really know any of this stuff, and you have to watch it if you tell. This was like, oh no, I know this song. Okay, I know this one. Didn't know that was from this West. I thought it looked amazing. I thought it just looked stunning. I know it was in the 4K, but it looked old and fresh and vibrant at the same time. It had a really, really good visual look to it. The music looked great. Because my wife was pissed off that I watched it without her this week. I said, I got to watch it by Saturday. She goes, but I want to watch it. Well, you can watch it with me. It's like, why did you watch that one without me? Well, you've been at shift for 3 days, so I had to watch it. But yeah, and she goes, and it's like, yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I'll put it on again. It's the kind of things where you can put it on the background very easily because you just like the music. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It didn't go the way the story went the way I thought it was going to go. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a real good one. The reason why it's got so many nominations. It's like, watch it, and I'm sure it's going to be a massive boost on Disney Plus.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of very good musicals on Disney Plus. No surprise. I mean, Disney's been producing musicals almost as long as they've existed, but they've been adding to it. Like we got Hamilton a couple of years ago. We've got this now. There's some other things coming up. Greatest Show. Yep, that was a really good one. The songs were really good. I'm not so keen on the story, but I was in the same boat as you. I've never actually seen West Side Story. I'm very familiar with Romeo and Juliet. I've seen like tons of different versions of that, but this is the first time seeing West Side Story. And I didn't know as many songs as you did, but I was like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with this song. I've heard this before. I've definitely heard these songs pop up before. So that was really interesting. I didn't realize how many of those songs had just kind of permeated into general pop culture. But yeah, this was really, really good. It is a shame that it got overlooked when it got released in theaters at the end of last year. It is understandable. We were still very much in the, do I want to go to the theater? Not really. And I mean, Spider-Man kind of broke the wall there and stuff. And I guess Batman's doing very well this week, but I
think it's doing Spider-Man numbers.
Well, I think I saw it's projected to do like 110 million by the end of the weekend, which is a pretty solid launch week. Yeah. Anyway, this is not about Batman. West Side Story was great. I also wanted to call out the cinematography, which is fantastic. It looks old because they added the film grain. They made sure to use the color palettes at the time. They used a lot of framing that worked for it, but it still looked modern. It was clean. It was crisp. The technical merits are extremely well done, which is what you expect from Steven Spielberg. Even when he's doing movies that aren't particularly good, which this one is not. This is a very good one. You can always tell that he takes a lot of care to make sure that the visual style of the movie matches what the story is trying to tell. And this is actually rarer in Hollywood than it should be. Most directors and cinematographers have a very distinct style, and no matter what story they're telling, it is in that style. Spielberg always adapts, and most famously like Saving Private Ryan or Schindler's List or things like that, where it kind of evokes the thoughts of the time. This is another one of those where you feel like you are in that time period because of the palettes and the framing and just the way it is shot.
It just felt so different than anything else I've watched recently. It just felt a different type of thing at all. I mean, there's some aspects of it go, oh yeah, this definitely feels like you would see it in a musical. I think when it started and they're all like walking down the street in there.
Oh yeah,
and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be like that. Is it? It's like, because I wasn't sure if it was gonna be like a music, because it does this have like speech, because I'm not so keen on the Andrew Lloyd Webber kind of musicals where it's just music from one end to the other and it does no actual speaking, and the acting part it's one of my little things with musicals. And I was like, okay, so it took me 15-20 minutes to get into the style. To begin with, it was a little bit like, okay, I've got to get used to they're walking down the street and then they start dancing and all the rest. So it's like, okay. But I mean, there's like one scene, and like I think it's like America, where they're just in the street and there's just like hundreds of extras and it's dancing and it just looks absolutely beautiful. Yeah. And it just was really good. I mean, like the whole the story that went alongside it. I also, because there was this big thing of like the Spanish speaking scenes, the Puerto Rican scene, and like how that was gonna, and like people were like, well, you're not gonna be able to understand it. And it was like, no, I actually thought that worked really well, because you'd have like, I don't know, Wasp or was it Yellow Jacket guy? I can't think of his name. When he would just turn and go English, and it was like, oh, I like that. I like it. And they were like breaking in and out of English as they were talking, and like it didn't take away. You knew what was going on. You didn't need. And I was a bit worried before, because I heard about this and go, well, how's that going? No, you guys, that worked perfectly. It worked better without the subtitles, because you were watching them and you could tell there was stuff going on, and they were like in the middle of a heated argument, and then they'd break into English and go like, we need to speak English, and the police telling them, and it worked. I was completely like, yeah, oh no, that worked. That was a really good decision.
To be fair though, a lot of that will come from the talent of the actors involved, because there's a lot of body language going into it, a lot of using the voice to convey, if not exactly the meaning, then the intent behind it. So they did a fantastic job. I did see a quote from Steven Spielberg. I don't have it in front of me, so I'm paraphrasing, but he didn't want to do English subtitles because that was kind of like implying that English was superior to Spanish, like that the Jets were inherently better than the Sharks because we had to translate it into English, which I thought was a really nice touch from him. And it did. It worked perfectly fine within the story. Never had a hard time figuring out what was going on. It's like excellent done. And I mentioned like the superb acting. It's really interesting because other than Tony, who was played by like Han Solo or someone like that, these were all from dance troupes. They're all from people who are used to Broadway and Broadway style musicals. Most of them have not done any acting, film acting at all, but they translated it across just fine. They all did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why. I've forgotten her name, but the one that's picking up the all the support artists. I mean, she just completely just caught in this movie. Every scene she was in, she completely stole.
The actress from Maria.
No, not Maria. The other one. I'm trying to think. I'm gonna have to look it up now. West Side Story cast, because she literally, I can see how she completely stole the West Side Story cast, because she's up for best supporting actress. Andrea DeBose, Anita.
Okay.
She was the sort of I would say almost not quite the sister-in-law to Maria.
The girlfriend of Maria's brother. Yeah.
She just kind of, I don't know, she just completely, every scene she was in, she just took it away.
Well, there was that one scene, of course, and this is minor spoilers if you don't know the Romeo and Juliet story, but right after Bernardo is killed and she realizes that his sister is dating / married to the person who killed Bernardo, and they have this fight where at first she's like, I will hate you forever for taking him away, and etc. And then coming around to like, I have to support her now rather than tearing her down. We've got to come together as a family. And if that means supporting this love between them, then I will just suck it up and deal with it. Right. And that entire sequence, she just does a magnificent job with it.
Yeah. Just as a whole, I was really, I mean, because my mum and dad had said before, but like, what's out this week? I said West Side Story, and they were like, yeah, so yeah, you can watch it on my, like, literally, my mum messaged me, it was great. She loved it. It was just like, and she doesn't tend to do that very. I can't tell you how many movies she doesn't really watch movies, but this was one that she was really wanting to watch, and she loved it. Which is, again, this is the whole thing, and I'll probably end up watching it again tomorrow with my wife. And I've got actually no problem with that. It was good. It's a really, but again, this is that whole thing with this movie of, this is general entertainment. This is content for Disney Plus that is not, it's not Disney, it's not Marvel, it's not Star Wars. This is 20th century. This is entertainment. It goes alongside Free Guy, which was another big hit, and just continues to broaden out what Disney Plus is. And I think, Disney, they must have paid a little bit of money to get hold of this one instead of, because it's on HBO Max as well. But yeah, this is a big hit.
And this will, I think, continue to find its way onto the charts for a while, at least on the Disney What's Popular charts. Between this, Free Guy, again, some of the other musicals you mentioned, Greatest Showman and Hamilton and so on, I think for the people who are subscribed only for Marvel or only for Star Wars or only for the kid programs for keep their youngins occupied, when they do finally kind of branch out and like, what are we going to watch this weekend? And like, that I think this will be an interesting gateway into some of the non-standard Disney content for people. And yeah, this is a great addition. I have no idea what they paid to get it onto the service, but I hope they view it as worth it. I hope the metrics back it up.
Well, I know it looked like it worked for Free Guy, because apparently they got watched by 2.5 million people on both platforms on that first week, which is higher than Encanto or Eternals. Obviously being on two streaming services means you got twice as much chance of watching it, but it's great to kind of see Disney kind of having access to its content. Especially in the US. I mean, we're getting lots of movies. We've got like Nightmare Alley and the Eyes of Tammy Faye and a few other movies coming up this month in the UK. But this is where, we're really going to start seeing 20th century, I think, leading to it. There was an article this week on the Hollywood Reporter with the president of 20th Century, where he literally said they're planning on having 10 movies on Disney streaming services. He said Hulu, and he said Star Plus, and I'm like, well, you'd missed the whole other one out, which is Disney Plus. So we kind of assume that it's a little bit more mixed up in terms of how they're doing it. But, they're really going in heavy on releasing movies on Disney Plus, Star Plus, and Hulu, and they're only going to have 2 or 3 movies a year in cinemas. And it's like things like West Side Story. It's like, I don't know if we're going to see a movie like this for a while because it didn't do particularly great. I don't think the other musical, The Heights or something, that HBO had last year, that one didn't do so well at the box office, but they do extremely well when they get in the hands of people at home.
Yeah, and I am at least hoping that the decision callers at these companies, the ones who greenlight future projects, do take into account the climate that was going on when they was released. There were a lot of movies that got released that really should have gotten more publicity, but it's like no one's going to theaters, and for very good reason. No one's going. It's not the fault of the movie. It's the environment. It's when people talk about, like Onwards. Oh my God, it was such a flop. I'm like, yeah, because COVID happened literally when it came out.
But it's going to be. I'm really interested to see what happens with West Side Story. And I think a lot of people are looking to see, will this do Encanto? I don't think it'll be quite as in the same zone as Encanto, but Enchanto. So, it's definitely. I feel like this one's gonna. I definitely feel it's going to pick up a lot of steam and a lot more like love, because I think there's going to be people like us that are going, oh yeah, no, that was good, and it will get that attention that it just didn't have when it came out in September.
And comparing it to Encanto is really not fair, because West Side Story, this is a remake of a book adaptation, or a Broadway adaptation of a book. So it's already a known quantity. All you really have to tell people is, no, it's a good remake. It is tribute to the original. I presume. I haven't seen the original, but this is a good movie. Don't avoid it because it's a remake. This is good. Whereas Encanto, you really do have to go, no, it's a new property, but it's really, really good. You should check this one out. Listen to the soundtrack. Here's We Don't Talk About Bruno or whatever, and get people hooked in that way. It's an apples to oranges comparison, because you have to approach it from different angles.
I think it's more or less the idea that they feel like, I think this is the movie that could explode with repeat viewings on Disney Plus, which I do agree. I think there's gonna be a lot of people like repeating it because they like the music, and I definitely can see that. But yeah, it's gonna be. It was a good, really good, solid release. I was really, really happy with this one. Definitely felt like got to him. Yeah, that was good. It's that kind of weird thing. Like, is it the best picture? I mean, I can technically, I'd kind of say like there's some really beautiful scenery. It looks amazing. It sounds amazing, but it's a little bit like. I'll be honest, it's a lot better than the ones I've seen from Netflix. I mean, Power of the Dog, then Don't Look Up was okay, but it's different kinds of movies. But I definitely preferred this one.
in another year, I would say this it would probably still get nominated, but it really wouldn't be a contender. Given how few noteworthy movies came out this year, it's got a decent chance. But we'll see. The Oscars are weird. Yeah.
So there we go. So that is this week. So next week, I believe we have got. I'm just check the calendar. I think it is.
When is Red?
Turning Red is next Friday.
Right. So that another major movie release on Disney Plus.
I can talk about it next week. I have seen it. It is good. But we can talk properly next week on once the embargo has lifted. So that one's good. It's generally. That's gonna be a really big release, I think, for Disney Plus, and then after that, so yeah, and then we've got.
Well, we'll have episode 4 of The Dropout. So we'll check that one out. I need to watch one more episode from this week, and then we'll both be caught up next week. Roger talked about it last week. I'll just really say what Roger said last week is accurate. You guys should watch it. It's really good.
Yes, yeah, definitely check out The Dropout. It's it'll be getting new episodes every Thursday for at least for this month. Another high quality series. This is, again, we're really going to start seeing some stuff moving. So hopefully next week as well we'll have that one, but we're going to have hopefully some new news from the annual shareholders and we get an idea of what's going on. But on that note, guys, thank you very much for joining us this week. We'll see you guys soon in another episode. Remember to go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow, and subscribe, and we shall see you guys then. Later. Thank you very much for watching this video. Make sure you go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow, and subscribe. Also, a huge thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and also on our YouTube channel memberships. And I shall see you guys in another video. Laters.